Hey there, everybody. This is David Green, co-host of the Bigger Pockets podcast and author of Long Distance Real Estate Investing, How to Buy, Rehab, and Manage Out-of-State Rental Properties. And I would like to talk to you guys today about buying a house in a market that's different than where you live. Really buying an investment property in a market that's different where you live. Now, people have different reasons for wanting to do this. I live in California. A lot of you are in Philadelphia, I understand, and the market is kind of crazy over there. You guys have had inflated prices. There's low inventory. There's lots of flippers in a lot of these hot markets where we live that are looking to run a business, and they're kind of like desperate for yield. So they're paying more for some of these flips than what we're used to seeing. I know a couple of guys that are flipping 30 to 40 houses a month. And when they're doing that much volume, they don't need as much meat on the bone as what the small time flipper needs. So we start seeing this and we start thinking this is impossible. How are they running it at these margins? Because they can run their business cheaper than ours because of the volume that they're making. And it can be frustrating. So what I finally decided was, rather than trying to force this square peg into a round hole and make my market work for me, I would just go to another market and figure out how to make that work for me. And that's been going great. So what I found is that in the book that I wrote, I talk about this fishing analogy where you can go to the part of the lake that you know and keep fishing, or you can go find where the fish are and you can learn to fish in that part of the lake. And that's kind of what I've done. So what I like to talk with you guys about today is just the process that I put together for how I do this, how I make sure my due diligence gets done, how I find deals, how I choose the market, kind of all the stuff that's in the book. And if you guys are interested in this, you can go pick up the book. If you do, I'd love it if you'd write me a review online on Amazon or something. Those really help. And then even if you don't, I'd love it if everybody would go and subscribe to the Bigger Pockets podcast on iTunes or Stitcher or the Android store, wherever you listen to podcasts. Me and my co-host, Brandon Turner, talk a lot about investing in real estate, and we interview people every week that do the same thing and learn from them. It's pretty much the best podcast you can find if you want to learn how to be an investor. So with that being said, let's jump into this. I'm going to hit a key points of my system, and then I'm going to go over some kind of ancillary points about things you should know and a little bit of mindset stuff, like how you can get over the initial apprehension or fear you have when it comes to buying in another market. Because for a lot of people, that's what holds them back. It's not the deals. It's not the numbers. It's not the process or the systems. It's just the fear of, I don't live there. How do I do this? So the first thing I want to talk about is how you choose the market that you're going to invest in. Now, a lot of people are trying to find the next big thing. They're looking for what we call emerging markets. They're like, where's the next boom going to happen? I want to get in there first, right? And that is a strategy that works if you're primarily concerned with appreciation. Now, appreciation can cover over for a multitude of sins. If you screw up really bad on a deal, but you're in a market that has a lot of appreciation, you can make a lot of money. The problem is nobody has a crystal ball. And in all honesty, by the time you figure out what the next hot market is going to be, there's probably a ton of other people that have got there before you and they're already buying deals. So I don't let the market I'm choosing be the factor that holds me back from getting started. What I want to do is I want to go find an area where I know that they're going to have houses that I'm looking for. I know that what I call it's a target rich environment. I know that if I'm looking for houses to flip, I can find a market with very low days on market, pretty high price ranges, and not enough inventory. If I'm looking for buy and hold, which a lot of people are, I'm going to be looking for a market with low days on market, so I have less competition, a very strong price to rent ratio, and a strong economic base, right? Now, if that economic base, like the jobs people are getting, is growing or diversifying, like tech is moving into there, that's so much the better, right? That's probably going to lead to appreciation. But it doesn't have to be the case. As long as there's more than one economic base in that area, I'm good. I never want to buy in an area where there's only one form of employment. So if you think about disasters that have happened in my lifetime of real estate investing that I've been paying attention, Detroit's really the main one that comes up. That place got absolutely hammered. And the only problem with investing in Detroit was that there's only one source of income. You work in the automotive industry. That's like the primary economic employer. And when that went down, which one industry can go down at any time, everybody got hurt. It didn't matter how good your deal was because you don't have a tenant to live there. Now, what I want to stress to you is that of all things that can go wrong in real estate investing, the only one that you can't recover from is not having a tenant to rent your property. That is the one weak spot in this whole chain, is that if there's no one to rent your property, it doesn't matter how great the house is, how much equity you have, anything, it doesn't matter because there's no one that's actually going to be paying you money. And owning a rental property is owning a business. And there's only one way that that business can generate revenue, and it's from rent. Okay. So avoid areas where you see only one form of economic employment. So I would not be investing in North Dakota, at least not buy and hold, maybe flipping houses if you're going to get into that market, because North Dakota pretty much is just employed by the oil industry right now. I would never choose like a fishing village in Alaska where everybody that works there is a fisher person, or any area that's completely dependent on tourist and like attractions. Like that's a tourist area. That's why everybody goes there. That's dangerous. If that goes down, the whole thing goes down. Now, it's okay if the tourist market is like one element that makes that place important. Like Nashville, tons of tourists go to Nashville, right? They make money off of that, and that becomes one of the economic drivers of the area. But it's not just tourists. They have a thriving music industry, like we know. There's a lot of entertainers that go there. There's a lot of like regular type employment opportunities and people that want to live there. They have good schools. Nashville's a very popular city that has tons of different companies that work there. That's the kind of area you want to pick if it's going to be for a long-term buy and hold. Now, as far as the target-rich environment goes for rental properties, that's where we're going to focus on because that's primarily what I do. I want to find an area that has a very strong price to rent ratio. Now, what I mean by price to rent ratio is that the price of the home is low compared to the rent that you can receive for it every month, which is higher. Typically, we look for something that fits the 1% rule, which means that the rent is 1% every month of the purchase price. So if I'm buying a house for $100,000, I want to know that the rent's right around $1,000. Now, it could go a little bit lower. It could probably go down to 800 and still make sense sometimes, like 0.8 is a good number if it's not 1%. And then higher priced homes, the 1% rule becomes less important. In lower priced homes, the 1% rule becomes more important. So if I'm buying a $50,000 house, that rent better damn well be $500 a month. Otherwise, I'm not even going to look at it. It's probably going to be higher than that when you get into those low priced houses. So if you're looking at homes and you're seeing that the rent shows $1,100 a month, I'm looking to pay somewhere around $110,000 to maybe $130,000 for that house. Anything more than that, it's going to be difficult for it to cash flow. Taking a note for later in this speech about something I want to make sure we cover as far as the criteria that I have for how I know when I want to buy a house or not. So look for areas with a very strong price to rent ratio. 1% is a really good number. And then you almost want it to have a lower days on market. When there's a higher days on market average, meaning houses are selling very quick, there's a lot of competition. You're trying to fish with a bunch of other fishermen that are trying to catch all the same fish that you're trying to catch, right? We want to avoid that. As an investor, we want to be zigging when everyone else zags. Warren Buffett said, you want to be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful, right? So in California, where I live, in 2005 and 6 is when I first started looking at real estate, and it was crazy expensive, and home prices were jumping. I believe in my hometown of Manteca, California, they were rising 26 cents a minute is how fast home prices were rising. So I didn't want to get in that market because everyone else was. I was scared when everybody else was greedy. Now, in 2009, 2010, 2011, we had a crash and everyone was afraid to buy real estate. They thought prices were going to keep dropping. They thought that there wouldn't be anyone to rent it. They thought the economy would never recover. We were going into another depression, right? That's when I jumped in and I started buying. Now, that doesn't mean that you should avoid buying real estate right now because there's a lot of other people doing it. It means you need to avoid the areas where a lot of other people are buying. Right? I'm in North Florida. I'm in Arkansas. I'm in Georgia. I'm still in Arizona a little bit, but not as much because there's a lot more people there. I'm looking for areas where other people are not looking to be investing in real estate. And I'm looking for strong price to rent ratios while they're there. Now, when the market turns around and we hit one of these areas, these like times where California is once again, nobody wants to buy there. That's when you need to be jumping in with both feet. So my strategy is that coastal markets, they go up and down really high. You buy low, or you buy low, you sell high, and they kind of do this. As you get closer into the middle of the country, you start to find that like the Midwest and some parts of the South, they're almost like flatlining. They don't really go up. They don't really go down a whole lot. Those are the markets that you buy in times like this when the market's really hot. That way you avoid getting burned. When the market cools off, that's when you jump out and you buy in the coastal cities and you'll make most of your money. So I believe that in any market I've ever seen, there's a part of the country where you can be investing and it makes sense to do it. You don't have to sit on the sidelines and do nothing. I don't think that you should be investing in your market at all times, right? You need to be investing in your market when it makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense in your market, you need to go to another market. So the last thing I look at when choosing a market is where I have a competitive advantage. Now, what I mean by that is, where do I just know someone that can make it easier for me to be successful? Do I have a cousin in an area who's a really good realtor or a really good contractor or a really good property manager or knows other investors, something like that, that can help give me an advantage over other people, or over an advantage of just starting completely fresh somewhere, not knowing anyone at all. So before you try to figure out the next emerging market and you get really caught up in that, ask yourself, where is there a target rich environment and where do I have a competitive advantage? And make sure once you find it that the economic model makes sense in that area, that they're not dependent on one source of employment. Once you find that area, the next thing you're going to want to do is figure out who your team is going to be. Now, in the book, I talk about my core four, and those are the four people that I need. And if I have them, I can invest anywhere. I've gone to several markets and I've invested in all kinds of different places, and I found I need these four people every single time. They are the lender, the property manager, the contractor, and the deal finder. Now, a deal finder is usually an agent, but it can be a wholesaler, it can be a friend, it can be yourself if you like to find your own deals. The important thing is that you have those four people. Now, usually once you find one, those recommendations will help you find the others. And I have this philosophy that rock stars know rock stars. So if I find a really good person at one part of their job, they'll know other people that are really good at their job that will help me in that area. And they'll give me referrals to other people that are really good in their job that will help me there. And eventually I have a strong core four. And eventually that core four will be bringing me deals, and I won't even have to look for deals for myself, right? The ideal business we're building, we're not doing any of the work. We're hiring the people to do each individual part of the job. And that's what we're going to be working for. And I'll talk a little bit later in this conversation about the systems that I have built up so that I don't do hardly anything. And it's getting to the point where I'm going to be doing nothing. Other people will be doing everything, but I will be making all the money. And then I'll use my time that I'm not using for this anymore to go make money in other areas, like being a real estate agent, writing more books, whatever the case may be. So when you have a core four, you want to use them to leverage all the parts of the job that you shouldn't have been doing anyways, but you probably were. If any of you guys are investors and you already own property, you know just how tempting it is to go change a door lock or go fix a leaky toilet or go fix a sink that's leaking when it really shouldn't be you doing it. You should be paying a handyman to do the majority of these jobs, but it's so tempting when the house is near us to go do it and save ourselves $80. But who knows what we could have done with those 3 hours that we wasted to save $80. We probably could have made more than $80 if we had a better use of our time. So for me as a real estate agent, my time is worth more than whatever $80 divided by 3 is, right? Like $26 or whatever that is. I could do way better looking for another client, servicing a client that I already have, winning somebody over, holding an open house, stuff like that. When I was a police officer, I could have done way better going to work at my job and working overtime rather than going to change those locks. So my point is, you want to use your core four to leverage all the stuff that you shouldn't be doing anyway. So when you want to write an offer on a house, you should have your real estate agent send you comps, and you should run those by another real estate agent or maybe your property manager to make sure the comps look good. When you get into contract, you don't need to go look at the house. This is a problem that everyone gets into of, well, how do I buy a house that I haven't seen, right? The odds are, or the reality is, we don't need to look at houses. Very few of us are home inspectors or experts of any kind to know what we're looking at. We need the person who's doing the rehab to look at the house to give us a bid. We need the person to do a home inspection and read over the report. We need the agent to look it over who's working as our fiduciary and give us advice on what to do. We don't need to go look at a house. I buy houses, almost all of them, I've never seen and I never will see, and I don't need to see it. It doesn't make a difference if I see it. This is a business, right? When you buy a stock, you're not driving to Cupertino to go to Apple and look and see, oh, is it really there? How's the company being run? What does it smell like? Like, there's other people that worry about all that stuff. You're just buying stock in the company. You got to start treating your business like that too. You don't need to look at single family houses when you're buying them. You need other people to, and you need to read the report. So leverage that work onto somebody else to do it on your behalf and create a system that you do every single time that you can then train somebody else to do later to go through those reports and make those decisions to decide how the rehab is going to be run. That leads us to due diligence, right? Because you're going to want to get certain stuff done to make sure you're not getting ripped off. But your due diligence shouldn't be any different than if it's a house in your own backyard. If we're buying a house, we should know what the rental comps are. We should know what the price of the home comps are, right? Am I overpaying for this house or am I buying it below market value? We should know what comps are for contractors. How much is this guy going to charge versus how much is this guy going to charge? We should know what the homeowner's insurance comp is going to be like. How much are they charging versus somebody else? You go collect all this data exactly the same as if the house was in your area, but you're probably leveraging other people to do it, which is actually better for you. It's not worse. If you can get your agent to do this for you, that's awesome. Now, if you're worried, will my agent do that for me? Probably yes, they will, especially if you're buying a home and you didn't make them go show you homes. I'm a real estate agent and I'm doing really well. The number one task that takes more of my time than anything else is going to houses and showing it to clients. It takes forever. I can't be on my phone and talk to anybody else because I have to give that client all my attention. They usually don't know what they want, so they're going back and forth and trying to figure it out, and I'm just kind of held hostage during that process to where I can't do any other work. That's why that's one of the first things I leveraged to a specialist to go show homes for me, because it was killing my productivity. Now, when I'm buying out of state, I don't have to worry about that at all, and neither does the other agent. They don't have to go show me homes. So I don't have any problem at all asking him to find me people to give me rehab bids, find me people to, or find comps for me, find me rental comps, verify this stuff, because they saved a ton of time not showing me a house, right? So don't be afraid to ask people for leverage. Don't be afraid to ask your lender, hey, I really need someone to help me do this. Do you know anybody? Because that guy's not getting paid, or that gal's not getting paid unless that deal closes. Don't be afraid to ask your property manager, do you know anyone that can do the work to fix it up? I really need a contractor. Do you know a handyman, right? They want to manage your house. They want to show they have value. This is what they do for a living. Let them help you. Go with their recommendations, vet their recommendations out. And if that person works well, then keep using them. If they don't, then you keep looking. When it comes to systems, right, this is very important when you're investing out of state, because your systems have to be much more structured. Now, you can't scale without systems. Systems are just ways that you can replicate what you do, leveraging it onto someone else and making sure things don't get missed in the process. The problem with it buying in our own backyard is that we very rarely ever get our systems right. Oftentimes, we are doing a lot of the work ourselves, or we're not doing the same thing all the time, so we don't really need a system. We just know what pops in our head. And we end up being much less efficient than we could be if we had it. So my systems start with my 3 criteria. There's 3 things that I need if I want to be able to buy a property. One, it will have to cash flow positively, so I need to know how to analyze a house. Analyzing a house is exactly the same when you do it out of state or in another area as when you're doing it in state. The only difference would be you have to budget in for property management, so you can't do it yourself. You're far away. You probably shouldn't be doing it yourself anyways. My second criteria is there needs to be equity in the house. I want to be buying it under market value. My number is I want to be all in for 75% of the ARV. ARV stands for after repair value. That's what the house is worth when we're finished, right? Like in most cases, it's the appraised value. If you're flipping it, it would be the price you're going to sell it for. The third criteria is it can't be in a bad neighborhood. I don't want the headaches that come from D-class properties or C-minus class properties even. I don't care how good they look on paper. They're not going to make me money in the end of the day because there's evictions and people messing up your house. You're buying a job when you buy a house in that price range. You're not buying an investment. So if I have a house that fits those 3 criteria and I have a core 4 in the area, I'll buy it. Now, why do I feel so confident that I can be able to buy this house? What if there's a better deal that comes along? That's what most people think. I can't pull the trigger. What if there's something better, right? If I'm hitting all in for 75% of the ARV, I will be able to refinance that house and get 100% of my capital back. And then I can go buy that other great deal that we're all afraid about losing. Okay. So I use the Bur Strategy, and that's the next book that I'm writing. It's set to come out early next year. And the Bur Strategy is an acronym that stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. And that's the order in which we go through buying a house, fixing it up, and then refinancing it later. And the difference is when you buy a house with a down payment, let's say you put $25,000 down to buy a $100,000 house, and then you got to spend $15,000 to fix it up. You spent $25,000 to buy it, $15,000 to fix it up, so you're all in for $40,000. You now have to save another $40,000 before you can buy that next house. Okay, when you use the Bur Strategy, you can buy fixer-upper properties a lot of the time, so you're getting a better deal on it because it needs a lot of work. So maybe you buy it for $60,000, and then you spend $30,000 to fix it up because it needs more work than the $15,000 that you bought on the traditional model. And so you're all in for $90,000, but that would be 75% of $120,000. Now, if that house appraises for $120,000 and I'm all in for $90,000, a bank at a 75% loan to value ratio will let me borrow $90,000. So if I'm all in for 90 or less and I can pull out $90,000, I can get all my money back and go buy another house, or I can get more than all my money back and I can make money to buy this house. I also have a house that I've spent a significant amount of money rehabbing, so there's probably nothing that's going to go wrong with it for a long time. And the third factor for why Bur is so much better is that even if I mess up and the house doesn't appraise for 120, it appraises for 110. Maybe I leave $5,000 or $6,000 in that deal. I couldn't rehab all of it. $5,000 or $6,000 in a deal is a whole lot better than the 40,000 that we just mentioned a minute ago, right? I can save another $5,000 or $6,000 and go invest in another property pretty quick. It takes a long time to save $40,000 and go buy another house. So just this one trick, just changing the strategy of how I buy houses led from me buying 2 houses a year, maybe 3 if it was a really big year, to 2 houses every single month. And in the future, when I get financing secured and that part's easier for me, I'll be buying 5 or 6 houses every single month, right? I'll be buying 5 or 6. I'll be rehabbing 5 or 6. I will go to get those refinanced. And while that's happening, I'll be buying my next 5 or 6 for the next month, that same next month. At the end of 2 or 3 months, that first round of houses has all been refinanced, and I can go buy another 5 or 6. So if I have 3 sets of houses going on, right? Like month 1, I buy 5 or 6. Month 2, I buy 5 or 6. Month 3, I buy 5 or 6. Then all my 1-month houses are refied. I can now go buy another 5 or 6 there. Then next month, my month 2 houses will refi. I can go there, and that cycle can just kind of continue on and on and on. That's a lot of houses that you can be buying every year. If you buy 5 houses a month, and you can continue that with the same money, mind you, right? This is not even the extra money that you're saving. That's 60 houses a month that you can be buying and never run out of money. We refer to this as the velocity of money, right? How many times you take that same dollar and you send it out and you buy a property that's worth more than you paid for it and you get a rental income from it, then you pull that dollar back to you and send it out again to buy the next house. So that, I talk about it briefly in the book that we're talking about now, Long Distance Real Estate Investing. But that strategy, when I combined it with long distance real estate investing, is what made my portfolio blow up huge, because I could go to areas where I knew I could find deals, and then I could refinance those deals. And I didn't have to care about how the days on market were, because a refinance doesn't care about that. That's only on a resale. So I could go to a place where the houses are taking 120 days before they sell. They're sitting there forever. And I can like go in there as an investor and get great deals because these people need to get their houses sold. And then I can refinance and get my money back and buy more. It's like no loss. I don't have any risk in this deal at all. I'm just stacking up cash flowing properties, getting all my money back, fixing them up, and then going to buy more. So I highly recommend that if you guys are thinking about becoming like legit investors and not just, oh, I want to buy 1 or 2 houses to say I'm an investor, that you look into the Bur Strategy and that you start researching like how that works and listening for it, and keep an eye out for that book when it does come. But you can't buy it right now, so don't worry about it. It's still being edited. The next thing about my systems that I want to talk about today is that if you don't document what you do every time you do a deal, you can't repeat it, and it will just wear you down. And when you start to get to where you're buying 5 or 6 a month, which was I hope your goal is, you can't keep up with it when you're the only one doing it. You need documented systems to be able to maintain work at that level. So my favorite tool for doing this is Google Drive. I like to open a Google Drive and then share it with the agent who I'm involved in, with the contractor who I'm involved in, and say like, okay, here's a folder for Florida. Here's a folder for 123 Main Street that I bought in Florida. I share access with it to the contractor, to the property manager, and to the agent. And then I make a Google sheet within there. And every time I write an offer on a property, I put the address in there, and I have my agent mark like what the offer was for and some of the other characteristics of the home, right? So I can remember this house, like the address, the square footage, the bedrooms and bathrooms, what the agent thinks the ARV would be, all that kind of information. So the agent now writes the offer, and I sign it off, and they check that the offer has been submitted. And now I have a thing I can go to remember all the offers that I wrote and every house that I wrote it on, so I don't forget about it. The contractor is going to upload their itemized bid that they're giving me for the work that they say that needs to be done right into the Google Drive. And I can pull it up and I can look and see what the contractor says the work's going to be. And then I can make a spreadsheet that I can plug that information into to find out if it's going to work for me. If it doesn't, I can go back to the agent and say the bid came in higher than we thought. I need you to go write the offer for less. Or I need you to say, hey, we're backing out unless you can lower the price. And if they don't want to lower the price, then we back out, right? That alone keeps everyone from coming to me and overwhelming me with all the information as the only decision maker. It goes into Google Drive and I get to it when I can, but I can have other people help me once I have the information in the drive. Other people can't help me if everything's in my head. They have to come talk to me about it, and I got to get it out of my head and into theirs. Then they got to think about it. Then they got to ask me questions. Then they got to bring it back to me. Now it's in my head again. I got to go give it to the next person. If I get them going in Google Drive instead of David Green's head, they can communicate directly with the vendors that are involved in this process and save me all the time. That's one of the ways I've been able to scale, and it's why I fell in love with this whole concept of leverage and getting other people involved. Right now, I'm training somebody to take over my portfolio for me. They're going to manage all the properties. They're going to make sure the rent was paid. They're going to run the books. They're going to make decisions when we have to do a rehab. They're going to make decisions on the turn. I'm just going to go find people to bring me deals, and that person is going to go look them over. And in a couple years, or maybe a year from now, I won't be doing anything in the single family business. I'll be buying 5 to 6 houses a month, and I won't even know about what's going on because I've set standards that somebody else is making sure we hit. And I'm just checking in with them every quarter to make sure that we're on task, right? I'll be off starting another business, a house flipping business, and I'll do the same thing in that business. And then I'll have somebody else running that. Then I'll go be a multifamily guy. And I'll have people that are helping me to find multifamily deals. And I won't be doing much of the work. I'll do the same thing in my real estate agent business. I'll find the clients, I'll bring them in, and I'll have other people on my team help me service them because they can get to it faster than me and better than me. And they're better with people than I am anyway. So my clients will love it. And I can grow to be the top real estate agent in the Bay Area, which is what my goal is. My point is, it's systems that make all that possible. You have to write down what you're actually doing all the time, what your criteria are, and why, so that you can have someone else do it. Now, most of you listening, when you hear me say that, you get like a lump in your throat because you realize, I don't know what my criteria are. I just go by how I feel. That lump in the pit of my stomach tells me this is a bad idea, or this increased heart rate tells me this is a good idea, right? I'm going to encourage you to get away from making decisions like that. You don't want to be thinking my emotions are telling me this, I should do it or not do it. You want to be getting in here saying the numbers are telling me this, I should do it or not do it. Because emotions change and they're subjective. They can be affected by what you had for lunch that day, what your last conversation with your boyfriend was like, how well your kids are doing in school, how well your job is going. Like, there's all kinds of things that can play tricks with your head when it comes to emotions. Numbers don't lie. They don't change. They stay the same. If anything, get your emotions tied to the numbers, okay? Get excited when a house hits the criteria that you want to see and you should move for it, right? Don't get excited because you said you're going to buy a house in 3 months and it's been 2.5 months, you haven't found one, and now you're feeling pressure and some form of a deal comes along and you're like, oh, I got to buy it, right? That's where systems can help. They force you to know what your own criteria are, and they really make you like drill down on what it is you want to see out of a deal and how you know what you're looking for. So Google Drive is huge. I also use checklists within Google Drive. So I have a list of like, okay, pre-contract steps we take. Someone brings me a deal. Look it up on rentometer.com to find out what the rent's going to be. Look up the comps and see if I'm at 75% of ARV before I know the rehab. Get a rehab quote, right? Like, there's all these steps that go in. And if everything works at the bottom of it, we're going to write an offer that would like write offer, find out if it's submitted. Find out if it's accepted. If it's accepted, they go to another checklist. This is offer accepted checklist. And it would be order the home inspection, order the pest inspection, communicate with the agent to make sure that she's done that, get a video of the inside of the house, talk to my contractor to make sure that like he got the bid submitted within the period of time I have to do due diligence. All the stuff that you need to be doing needs to be written down on a checklist so that you don't miss it, for one, and so that somebody else can take it over for you later, or in the meantime, help you with it, for two. It's going to be really that simple, okay? Let's say that we get through the escrow process and the last step in my checklist there is house closes. Now I need a third list for post-close, right? Call the electric company, get the electricity turned on, get the water turned on, make sure that I get the paperwork from the title company, make sure I log it in the list of houses that I own because I don't want to forget I own it, which has happened before. Make sure that the contractor is going to start the work when he said he is and log when the date is that he's supposed to be finished. Make sure I send him the first draw. All that stuff needs to be in the post-close checklist. At the end of it, when it's completely finished, the last step is going to be send it to the property manager to have them put it up for rent. Guess what? That's when another checklist start, right? Like house advertised for rent checklist. Now I have check in with the property manager to make sure it's being rented. Don't let it go so long without it being rented. Get a tenant in there, make sure all the leases got signed, make sure I know if they have a pet or not, make sure that I marked in a calendar when that lease is going to expire so that I can check with the property manager and make sure that they're raising the rent if it should be raised at the end of that month, like all that good stuff, right? These checklists are how you create systems. It can really be this simple. So don't get intimidated by this idea of systems, but they're very, very important that you don't mess up, and they force you to master what you're doing. And that is what I think is so important. It's why I'm writing this book on the Bur Strategy, because doing it over and over and over like this, which Bur allows you to become a black belt investor. The best martial artists just practice the same move over and over and over and over and over until they become a master of it. You can never become a master of real estate if you're buying 1 or 2 houses a year. You just don't get enough practice. You don't get enough repetitions in. You're not doing the volume. You're not getting the deals from the contractors. You're not getting the best attention of a property manager. The agents aren't going to bring the deal to you first. They're going to bring it to me because I bought 3 houses from them last month, not 1 house in the last 9 months like you. So that's really important, basically. That's why you want to become really good at what you do and create these systems. So I hope that this video has been helpful for you. I hope you have a little bit more clarity on how to invest out of state, and you realize it's really not different than investing in your own state. It forces you to be better. And really, it's the way you should have been doing it all along. We do way too much in our real estate investing business. We don't need to. We even try to know more than what we need to know. We don't need to know everything. We need to know the people that know everything. We need to know the home inspector. We need to know the property manager. We need to know the comps. We need to know the character of the person who's giving us numbers and the competence of them to know how much we can trust it. We don't need to become the expert in that area ourselves. We need to know the expert, know we can trust them. So I hope this helped you guys. I'd love it if you would pick up my book and if you tell people about it. I'd love it even more if you'd subscribe to the Bigger Pockets podcast and listen to me and Brandon on there interviewing different people. I hope that you guys have a great day. I am very grateful for the opportunity to talk to you guys. Follow me on Instagram or Facebook. I'm David Green 24. There's an E at the end of Green, and let me know what you thought. Thanks, guys.